Quick verdict in Texas and how distorted this country is on race. Let's check it out. And welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. We do start with some breaking news tonight. U.S. forces currently pounding Iranian targets, retaliation from a fed-up President Trump after the Islamic regime shot down a U.S. Apache helicopter this week. Also, all the slow walking we've seen from the regime. Axios reporting the targets being attacked right now include air defense systems, radars, and drone command and control units. We're going to have more on all of this coming up here later in the show, of course. But first, we start with last night. And a jury in Frisco, Texas, sentencing 19-year-old Karmelo Anthony, seen here with a fresh post-conviction mugshot, to 35 years in prison for the murder of Austin Metcalf. The jury's decision was shockingly fast, under 3 hours, and we all know what that means. It means there was very little convincing needed in that jury room. This was an open and shut case. Under that tent, on a rainy day in 2025 at a track meet, Karmelo, the killer, was the aggressor. The jury, very clear on that. Murdering an innocent 17-year-old kid, shoving a knife into his chest and piercing his heart. Austin Metcalf, on the right, died quickly in his brother's arms. In trial, even defense witnesses called to defend Karmelo Anthony, the killer, admitted that Anthony was the aggressor that day. This, again, was an open and shut case, but in a country this warped on skin color, it's already been twisted and distorted by race baiters, some of which are even in Congress, like Jasmine Crockett.
35 years for a kid who had decided to go under a tent that was not his team's tent as it was raining, and simply didn't want to be put out in the rain by some random kid that he didn't know, who was larger than him. A lot of people don't know what it is to live as a black person in this country, but just like you can give the benefit of the doubt to so many police officers when they go out and they shoot some black unarmed person. If a 300-pound man is beating me, like on top of me and beating me down, I'm not limited to fist.
Yeah. Jasmine Crockett's an attorney, by the way, but is willfully lying about this case to race bait and further the victimhood that keeps her core constituency under Democrat control. In reality, witness testimony from 17 witnesses, by the way, revealed Karmelo Anthony challenged multiple students inside that tent where he didn't belong to a fight. The victim, Austin Metcalf, declined to fight, said, "I'm not fighting you." Anthony was asked to leave the home team's tent multiple times and kept antagonizing and trying to start a fight. Austin Metcalf then simply pushed Karmelo Anthony, who responded by plunging a knife into his chest, nicking his heart. Austin Metcalf quickly bled out and died in his twin brother's arms. The Metcalf family losing a 17-year-old son to an aggressive killer who brought a blade to a track meet. But tonight, the BLM crowd claims the Anthony family, who've raised over $500,000 off the murder committed by their son, are the real victims. Take a listen to this Dallas area attorney.
Pray for the Anthony family because they have been legally lynched for the last year, and more so by this slaughterhouse of a courthouse as well as the family of the Metcalfs. So the energy right now is very white supremacy. They have shown up to be the pigs that they display.
The energy is white supremacy, a lynching by the Metcalf family themselves, she claims. The complete absence of reality. That's an attorney in the area where this happened. That woman's allowed to practice law in this country, totally indoctrinated by this mentality that's been used as a political weapon for decades from the Democrat Party onto the black community. Let's take a listen to just a little bit more from Jasmine Crockett.
Black women, especially black women who have black male children, live in fear and agony every single day. A fear and agony that I promise you, the Metcalfs probably never spent a day living that way. And we're going to have just some real conversations about race in this country.
just oozing with victimhood. It's all she ever does. She's going to lose her job soon. She's out of Congress. One family has a dead son. The other one got rich and has a son who will probably be out of jail by the age of 36 after stabbing somebody in the heart for virtually no reason. A hot take here from Cardi B, a rapper who brags about drugging and robbing men, saying, wow, disgusting. This is not justice. This is trying to make an example. This is not justice. I'd say a lot of people would think that the justice wasn't harsh enough. I'm sure Cardi B is very read up on the case, the intellectual that she is. This nonsense fueled what we saw outside the courthouse during this trial. A gaggle of Karmelo Anthony's supporters, literally protesting the prosecution of a murder.
Both should have been dead. The both brothers. Both should have been dead. You ask me? If he was white, we wouldn't even be here today. It would have never came to court. Anytime a white man or a white child can go and put their hands aggressively on anybody and something like this occur, it's self-defense. It's self-defense. You put your hand on me and see how I respond.
What do you want us to do? What do you want us to do at this point? What? I'm lost for words. I don't know what to do. I got 5 boys. I don't know what. I ain't got nothing to tell them no more. You can't walk away no more.
Tell them not to pick fights and then stab people in the heart. You could probably start there. Admit that your community has a clear cultural crisis is the other thing that you could do. It has fallen over the last 6 decades. In many ways, the black community is weaker than it was before the civil rights movement. Ask yourselves how that's even possible. And you arrive at one answer: politics. And control from one party over that community that has decimated that community. And we now have members of that community protesting a fully justifiable murder conviction. So indoctrinated with this idea of victimhood, pretending that murder is a reasonable response in the year 2026, 2025, when it happened, to any kind of conflict with a white person. Killing is reasonable as a response. Nick Sortor is an independent journalist who's been outside the courthouse. A lot of the video you've seen is from Nick, and we appreciate you coming on. What did you learn about where we are with race in this country as you covered this trial?
Man, I'm still trying to regain the brain cells that I lost yesterday, trying to interpret whatever things were being yelled at me, like in a lot of these videos. It was just an absolute circus out here yesterday. And you know what I've learned that's been fairly disturbing is that these people live in a totally different reality than we do. This is not the black community, for example. I have the amount of blacks that I've spoken with today that disavow all of this that's happened out here, disavow the murder, everything like that. It's huge. This is a totally different subsection of race baiters and low IQ people that are being preyed on by modern day Al Sharpton types.
Yes.
And, luckily, they don't have the numbers. They needed to convince the self-hating white liberals that they needed to riot in the streets over this, and they haven't been successful in doing it. No. You've got radio silence from people like Ben Crump, the race-baiting attorney. Right. Barack Obama hasn't said a word. Yeah. And you're not seeing any of the Soros-linked stuff funneling into this area. So this is a total loss from them. There's nobody here. I'm alone.
It was too far for a lot of the race baiters to follow on this. There were some. Jasmine jumped in on it. Others did as well. But I think you had a case here. You have a young man that's going to be eligible for parole in his mid-30s. So this wasn't an overexertion of the justice system on him at all. There's a killing that occurred. There's one kid dead. It seems like this case was rock solid when you looked at the witness testimony. I think, as you said, a lot of the race baiters saw this and said, I can't lose my credibility on this one. I'm gonna pass.
Yeah, and that really says a lot, because you get people like Ben Crump that made up that entire lie about, say, Breonna Taylor was asleep in her bed. And then Al Sharpton, hands up, don't shoot. That lie, if you remember, that started the BLM movement back in the mid-2010s. All lies, right? So these people don't have a problem with lying, but this case was just so cut and dry that it would have made them look like fools. And what's important to note here is the folks that you saw out in the parking lot yesterday, in the Karmelo Anthony family's tent that they had back here. It's gone now. It's totally They've been evicted.
It's all gone.
And but what they were saying in that video that I took, and they were openly saying it, they knew that they were on camera, that they said that they wish Karmelo would have also killed the twin brother, which had nothing to do with any of this. So this had nothing to do with self-defense. It was all about murder.
Yeah. It's all about race to people that are very, very messed in the head on this issue and have been, as you said, there's a lot of people that have been pushing that community in that direction. Nick, we appreciate it. Good reporting there from the scene. Thank you so much from the trial. Dr. Carol Swain is a former tenured professor at Princeton and Vanderbilt Universities. Horace Cooper is a chairman of Project 21. That's a black leadership network with conservative values. They both join us here. Horace, good to see you. What is your message to those that we saw outside this courthouse and those that have taken this insane position on this case and this crime?
Well, I'm not as optimistic as Nick Sortor is. I believe that these hustlers are just biding their time. They're going to keep agitating. They're going to use social media. And then we're going to start seeing people paid to come in and protest. The facts are clear. When you provoke an incident and then kill someone as a result of it, you will be found guilty. It's not just the state of Texas. This is a common rule anywhere in the United States. Pretending that this is a race issue is the very type of destructive thing that many of these groups live for and dream for.
You can go into the whitest areas of this country as a white man, pick a fight with a black man, he puts a hand on you and you kill him, you are going to prison, probably for longer than 35 years. I think there was a tremendous amount of restraint in that sentencing, and the fact that he's got only 17 and a half until he's eligible for parole. Dr. Swain, wanted to get your thoughts after watching this case.
Well, I'm very concerned about the black community. I have spoken before about black crime. It seems to be reaching levels that I've never seen before in my lifetime. And I believe that that subset of people who have been fully indoctrinated by white progressives to believe that they're always the victim, everything is racism, there is no responsibility expected of black people, I think that something has to be done about that. And I believe that this case could spark a conversation that would cause people to look more introspectively towards the black community, blacks as well as the white progressives that seem to relish these kinds of incidents, because we know that with Marxism, it's all about conflict.
Exactly.
So they want to keep conflict alive. And what is happening is that whites and blacks are becoming more suspicious of one another. Even people that are totally innocent, they don't know because there's so much violence coming from the community. We don't talk openly about black crime. We need to. It needs to be addressed, and people need to pay tough penalties.
Yeah.
We need to fill up the prisons if that's what it takes.
Yeah, well said. Horace, the continual focus on victimhood that we see, again, from the race hustlers, like you said, even in a story this obvious, it's like a fabricated reality that is being used as the blame for what I think is an obvious cultural decline that we've seen in that community. If you're a victim, then the behavior that we see the homicide rates are so bad. We see so many issues in that community that weren't there, always. They weren't always there. You blame it on victimhood, it gives you somewhere to put the blame.
So there's this juxtaposition. Yeah. America, if you are born here in the United States or managed to get here lawfully, this is a paradise. And yet, it isn't a walk in the park. You must work, you must apply, you must sacrifice. And what the victimology mindset says is, you're sitting here in the Garden of Eden, but you're not gonna have to work. You're not gonna have to make any effort. And if you're not thriving, it's white bigots' fault. Right. That is so terribly destructive. The truth of the matter is success strategies work regardless of whether you're black, white, or brown. It takes effort, it takes striving, it takes applying, and if you're in America, that will work for everyone.
Right. Dr. Swain, is it a stretch to say that, the black community in some ways is in a worse place than it was 60, 70 years ago when we had the civil rights movement. I think that, it seems like the community was stronger in itself. It was in a worse period of time, but was stronger during a darker time.
It was stronger, and I can say that after the election of Barack Obama and all the language about restorative justice and the lax system in the schools, as well as with people who were incarcerated, they were turned out, young people were not held in detention. All of this contributed to the situation where we are today, and this mindset that young Black people have, that's indoctrination. And when I look at someone like Jasmine Crockett, she should know better. I have seen in academia the more extreme Blacks, the angriest Blacks, they were the ones that were always rewarded. That in some ways it seemed as if white progressives enjoyed the entertainment. And they fuel this stuff. They don't think it would touch them, but it touches everyone. And we're all responsible. And I think that we need to use this moment to address Black crime because it affects my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, and everyone else. It's not a racial matter, but it is a racial situation when the Black community is disproportionately involved in crime.
Yeah, it certainly is. Dr. Carol Swain, Horace Cooper from Project 21, thank you both. We appreciate you guys coming on. All right, heavy bombing underway in Iran as we speak, as Trump appears fed up. We've got that coming up next. And then later in News from the Left, a message from a Senate candidate with a shirtless profile picture on a known pedophile app.
Going to an island with billionaires to possibly assault children is a vastly, vastly different thing.
All across the nation.
So we heard a lot about Gaza recently. We're going to head down there, check it out. We're going to be doing our show right here from Minneapolis.
People can't stop talking.
I agree mostly with a guy from Newsmax. We're not all bad dudes.
About Carl Higbie.
Oh, yeah? What are you going to do? Will you come take it out of my ham? I'm going to eat half this plate during the break. Maybe I'll call the ICE hotline. I don't know if I'll have enough time.
And Frontline for the big news they need to know. Watch Carl Higbie. Frontline.
Mike Hammond of Signal Relief. We've helped nearly 700,000 feel relief in their back, shoulders, and knees with our technology. But for many of us, it's our feet that hurt. And when they hurt, our walks get shorter, activities are skipped, and the moments we love start slipping away. That's why we created the Signal Step, a patent-pending insole built using the same proven technology people already trust from Signal Relief. Signal uses no drugs. There's nothing on the market like it. It's relief without the side effects. It's reusable, fits virtually into any shoe, and in a recent study, over 85% felt relief, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. So what are you waiting for? Feel relief with every step. If you're hurting, go to signalstep.com and get relief today.
Spring. Things out here have gotten a little too comfortable. It's time to run it. Run it until the grass becomes a lawn. Until the hedges duck for cover. Then run it again. Right now, save $30 on select trimmers. Steel.
It's a good deal. It doesn't give them the right to have a nuclear weapon. In fact, it totally prohibits them from ever having a nuclear weapon. And it was just tap, tap, tap. I don't know what they're doing. We hit them hard yesterday, and we're going to hit them again hard today, in case you miss it, in case you don't turn on your television set. And we'll see what happens with the deal. We were really close to a deal, but they keep tapping us along.
He's been really patient on this. That was the president earlier today promising that Iran would get a pounding tonight, and that pounding has begun. According to CENTCOM, U.S. military started a new round of strikes, 5:15 local time here on the East Coast. It's about 2 hours ago. After 20 strikes inside Iran last night, hitting Iranian radar systems and air defenses, they're going deeper here, the western side of Iran, kind of near the Strait of Hormuz. Retaliation for the Islamic regime shooting down a U.S. Apache attack helicopter, as well as frustration over Iran's games in this negotiation, all spilling over into this moment. So it looks like the ceasefire is over. The war is back on. Trump revealing that an Iranian drone lodged itself in between the pilots inside the chopper, but by some miracle did not explode. So they had a drone, an explosive drone in between them that had hit the chopper, and it forced them to crash land just off the coast into the water after a fire started in the cockpit of that big and very expensive Apache chopper. The U.S. using a drone boat to rescue the pilots. First time this technology has been used in combat for the U.S. military. A manless boat, a drone boat, going to pick them up. Amazing stuff. The survival of those two is like a miracle. Brigadier General Blaine Holt joins us now. Diana Furchtgott-Roth, former acting assistant secretary for economic policy at the Treasury Department, going to talk some of the economic consequences of this war with her. Good to have you both here. Blaine, start with you. Reports of targets being hit in southern Iran near the Strait of Hormuz air defense system. What exactly are we getting into tonight?
Yeah, we start with air defense and then we move our way into command and control. We'll be taking out a lot of IRGC positions tonight, but this is more about closing the deal. The IRGC has been the impediment because they may be broke, but they're the only ones with guns and arms and have been firing at Israel. And so for the negotiations to really get to where they need to be for the Iranian people to be free, the IRGC has to come off the table. They took an Apache. We're going to take out their entire force. The caution I have, and I'll make it real quick, is here in the United States, we have terror cells. Martyrs tend to leave behind a big event before they step off the planet. So we have to be very concerned about our domestic security here at home.
A quick follow-up to you, Blaine. So this is a big campaign we're starting right now in your assessment.
Ceasefire's in the rearview mirror. We're going to go get this done, I believe.
Interesting. Diana, I want to go to you. We just got this inflation number, 4.2% in May. That's a high number, mostly based off oil prices, of course. That makes everything go up in price. Here was the president on that. Take a listen.
Nobody knows it. We've been taking out millions of barrels of oil, millions of barrels. Every night, we took out the other night 22 ships. Late at night with no lights, because they don't have any radar, because we blasted the crap out of it. Millions of barrels of oil has come out, and that's why it's at $85, $90 a barrel instead of $250.
So the president made some news today by indicating that the reason, I guess, oil's not higher, gas isn't higher in this country is because we've been kind of squeezing millions of barrels out in the dark of night and getting it onto the markets. Even with that, though, Diana, I mean, we got 4%. That number starting with a 4 is a problem. How urgent is it for this administration to get that number down?
It is a problem, yes. And people are finding that the high price of gasoline is a lot more than they used to, but it's temporary. It's temporary because the Iranian conflict is temporary. And imagine how much worse it would be if Iran had a nuclear weapon. Iran has been attacking us verbally for the past 47 years. And it's about time that someone did something about it. Yeah. That someone is President Trump. And if you look at inflation without the energy costs in, it's around 2.8, 2.9. If we look at food, if we look at dairy, meat, those prices went down. This is purely energy and it's purely transitory.
Do you expect, Diana, real quick to you again, is tomorrow going to be, is oil going to shoot up when we look at the markets tomorrow, knowing what we know tonight?
Well, probably it'll go up a little bit, but the point is Americans are fighting for freedom. We're fighting for freedom, and freedom means we have a small price to pay at the pump and in our utility bills. And it's going to be worth it when Iran is taken out and stops threatening us.
Understood.
Freedom is not free, as we've been hearing a lot.
Yeah, Blaine, on to that point, short term, how short term does it feel to you? This has already gone longer than we thought it would go.
It'll depend on their weapon stocks and their ability to actually fire something. I would guess a week at the minimum, and then maybe 2 to 3 weeks at the max. But the IRGC, Scott Bessent's done such a great job preparing us for all of this. The money laundering, the money is dried up, they're broke, and they've transmitted to us where all their launchers are because they've been hitting Israel. So during the ceasefire time, our intelligence has grown to an exquisite level, and I think we're going to handily take down the IRGC, but I am concerned that they may have something up their sleeve as we make them extinct.
We'll follow the story. Blaine Holt, Diana Furchtgott-Roth, good to have you both. Thank you so much. In California, Steve Hilton has advanced to November. He joins us up next.
Tonight's Newsmax lineup is brought to you by Crown Atlantic. Protect what matters most with fast, affordable life insurance. Visit lifeforless.com.
The road to greatness is long, but greatness isn't just forged from within. It has to be proven on the greatest stage of all.
The hype is real! This is the moment we have all been waiting for.
Karan trusts Prevagen for her brain, and this is her story.
My name is Karan, and I'm from Brooklyn. I work for the city of New York as a police administrator. I oversee approximately 20 people. I did research, and I decided to give Prevagen a try. I felt amazing. I've been taking Prevagen for 4 years now. I feel confident. It's a life changer.
Prevagen has been the #1 selling brain supplement nationwide for over 10 years.
Attention! Do you owe money to the IRS? If you owe $10,000 or more, you must hear this message, because new Trump-era tax policy changes are providing relief to the American taxpayer. IRS policy changes in 2025 and 2026 have created new ways to resolve debt. Tax Relief Helpers knows exactly how to navigate them and could help you save thousands. Just call 800-357-9528 to protect your assets, home, and retirement.
I owed $87,000 in taxes. Tax Relief Helpers got the amount I owed down to just $3,500. I saved $83,500.
I got behind on my taxes and I owed $48,000. I called, and after they told me about the changes at the IRS, they got my bill fully removed.
We save Americans millions of dollars in tax debt every year, and we can help you. Call right now to take advantage of the latest Trump-era tax deductions to protect your assets, home, and retirement from the IRS. The call and consult are absolutely free. Call 800-357-9528. That's 800-357-9528. Attention! Do you owe money to the IRS? If you owe $10,000 or more, you must hear this message, because new Trump-era tax policy changes are providing relief to the American taxpayer. IRS policy changes in 2025 and 2026 have created new ways to resolve debt. Tax Relief Helpers knows exactly how to navigate them and could help you save thousands. Just call 800-357-9528 to protect your assets, home, and retirement.
I owed $87,000 in taxes. Tax Relief Helpers got the amount I owed down to just $3,500. I saved $83,500.
I got behind on my taxes and I owed $48,000. I called, and after they told me about the changes at the IRS, they got my bill fully removed.
We save Americans millions of dollars in tax debt every year, and we can help you. Call right now to take advantage of the latest Trump-era tax deductions to protect your assets, home, and retirement from the IRS. The call and consult are absolutely free. Call 800-357-9528. That's 800-357-9528.
Stop trusting foreign antivirus to defeat foreign-made ransomware. American-made PCmatic protects your family, your home, and your workplace. Go to PCmatic.com. Built by Americans to protect America.
Welcome back. Some good news here. Republican Steve Hilton advancing to November in California. He's going to face Biden's former HHS Secretary Javier Becerra. Just the picture of incompetence is his opponent in November. Hilton getting nearly 25% of the vote compared to Becerra's 28%. You see the numbers right there. And Steve Hilton, the Republican California gubernatorial candidate, joins us now. Congratulations to you, sir. You've made it to a really good position here. You've got just one-on-one now. What is the strategy going forward against Becerra?
Well, it's very clear now, Rob. Thank you so much, and it's great to be with you. It's going to be a very clear choice. If you want more of the same, if you're happy with the chaos and the cost and the incompetence and the corruption of 16 years of Democrat one-party rule, if you want your taxes to go up even more, they spend even more, gas prices even higher, more regulations on your business, sure, vote for Javier Becerra, because that's what he's promising, more of the same. He was actually asked the other day, is there anything he would change about what's gone on the last 16 years? And he couldn't think of anything. He had a moment like Kamala Harris on The View, where she was asked about Biden. She said, oh, nothing comes to mind. That's what he said, Becerra. And it's exactly as you say, Even the Biden people think that he's useless and incompetent. I mean, how bad do you have to be for the Biden team to dismiss you as a joke?
How did he get so far in your state? How did this man become a secretary in a presidential administration?
Well, this is what happens when you have a corrupt regime, where you get these career politicians who have no accomplishments. They don't achieve anything, but they're good at pandering to the various groups, the unions, the activists, whoever it may be, that you need to suck up to climb that ladder within the party. He's 36 years a career politician in the Democrat political machine. It's going to be a very clear choice. Do you want more of that, or do you want change? Do you want lower taxes, lower costs? You get rid of the regulations on business, just common sense changes.
Yeah, exactly. Want to talk about Los Angeles. Spencer Pratt ends up losing. You got Ro Khanna posting on X about these elections. Close friend of mine is canceling his voter registration today, convinced Spencer Pratt was robbed of the election, adding, "We need to figure out in California how we can get the vote counted faster and results tabulated so it doesn't drag on as long." Wants to make investments in all that. Want to also point out New York Post reporting thousands of homeless voters tracked to L.A. shelters despite many not living there or the facilities not having beds. 185 came from one drop-in center that received $600,000 from Nithya Raman. Videos of homeless residents on Skid Row saying that they were paid to vote by people for Bass and Raman. Is there any question that we have a very dirty system in your state for electing politicians?
Exactly right. And I just want to connect a couple of things here, Rob. Of course, it's true. We need to count quicker. One of the ways that we can do that is to have voter ID, because then you wouldn't have this ridiculous signature verification. We got people peering at signatures at these vote centers, trying to match them. We can vote for voter ID here in California in November. It's on the ballot. But the real point is this, and it's something that I want to connect the fraud story that we've talked about so much. In the fraud stories that we've exposed at Cal Doge over the last few months, many of them have been examples of taxpayer money being siphoned off to fund the Democrat political machine. For example, the cannabis, our very first report, $350 million from the cannabis tax in California that was supposed to go towards substance abuse prevention, actually going to a network of Democrat nonprofits and political groups doing voter registration, ballot harvesting, all of that. We've been paying for it. There's this far-left extremist immigration group, Churla, heavily involved in the anti-ICE riots a year ago, supporting Javier Becerra. They are 85% funded by California taxpayers. We expose what they do with the money. They go out and do ballot harvesting. They actually pay, according to them on their website, undocumented illegal immigrants. They pay them to do ballot harvesting. And what's that all about? It's about this moment in an election. This is the machine that they've been building with our money through the fraud in the government budgets for years. But now we're exposing it. That's why you need to elect me governor, because we can start to dismantle it.
Right, because that machine, as it gets stronger and stronger, the point of that machine is to never, ever let the party lose power. That's the whole purpose of it. So to break it is not an easy job. Steve Hilton, congratulations on November. We appreciate it. You've got a few months of very hard work, but I know you love it. Good to see you, sir.
And you. Thanks, Rob.
All right. J.D. Vance asked the DOJ to file charges against Minnesota's governor, Tim Walz. That's next.
When you're in the news business, it never stops. News is always breaking, and it's my job to get you the news, no spin, no BS. If you don't believe us, just watch us.
Watch Finnerty, weeknights, only on Newsmax.
People always ask, why Patriot Gold Group? With over 10,000 clients to date and over $1 billion in transactions, not a single complaint on the Better Business Bureau. Consumer Affairs top rated for 9 years in a row. Over 2,000 5-star reviews. The only company nationwide where you, the client, work directly with an owner. Home of the no fee for life IRA. Gold is up 80% in the last 28 months, 275% since Lehman Brothers collapsed. We are patriots protecting patriots. Give Patriot Gold Group a call at 888-528-4290 before it's too late. Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold and silver dealer 9 years in a row. Call now, 888-528-4290.
Did you know about 1 in 3 people with plaque psoriasis may also develop psoriatic arthritis? With fewer symptoms from moderate to severe plaque psoriasis, where would you go? Imagine being a million miles away. With Tremfya, clearer skin is possible. And for adults with active psoriatic arthritis, Tremfya goes beyond the skin. Less joint pain, stiffness, and swelling is possible. And Tremfya even reduced fatigue. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Imagine being a million miles away. Ask your doctor about Tremfya.
Started doing the Heimlich maneuver. That didn't work. We had people around us that were in the medical field, and they said, hey, you're doing everything right. Then people started shouting, get the life back, get the life back. Probably been a minute and a half, 2 minutes without any oxygen. He was completely gray. She put the life back right on his face, did it. He gasped for air. She did it again a few seconds later, and a grape hit the back of the mask.
And the ambulance would not have been there in time to save Jeremiah. He was gone.
Be prepared. Go to lifeact.net today.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com.
Look what I just found. No ding decline on the Experian app. They show me credit cards that won't hurt my credit if I'm not approved. Turns out I care about my credit health too. Get the app from your big financial friend. Experian.
Welcome back. Vice President J.D. Vance referring Minnesota's Governor Tim Walz and the AG Keith Ellison to the DOJ for prosecution after evidence they allowed billions of our dollars to be stolen in their state. Vance posting, Minnesota state officials are not above the law, and if they facilitated fraud, lied under oath about what they knew, or harassed and intimidated whistleblowers, they must face justice. Vance basing all that off of the referral off the House Judiciary Committee's bombshell Minnesota fraud report earlier this week. Tim Walz and Keith Ellison, aware of the fraud as early as 2019, continuing, though, to shell out federal government cash through their state to high-risk programs totaling about $9 billion. The pair had no interest in stopping the money train to mostly Somali fraudsters in their state who actively supported their campaigns with some of that money. The Walz administration accused of intimidating anyone who came forward with evidence. So not only did they allow this to continue happening, they were intimidating the people that were trying to stop it from happening. That is a crime. Kari Lake, Matt Schlapp join us now with more on this. Matt, is there a shot at actually a prosecution here for two people that certainly deserve it?
You know, if the prosecution is outside of Washington, D.C., I have much more hope. We have to remember that the judicial process in Washington, D.C., in New York City, and Chicago is hopelessly broken. Yeah. But we have a shot when we punch out into other parts of the country. I will say this, Rob, with the outrageous levels of governmental spending that were already at ridiculous levels, but then when COVID hit and we just lost our minds, and I think the Republican Party, although they aren't part of this fraud, they were too laissez-faire with budgets and budget deadlines and omnibuses and minibuses and all these other financial artifices they use to fund the government. They should have been watching much more closely. Yeah. And I'm happy that J.D. Vance and Donald Trump are getting that done now.
It's nice to hear that somebody actually cares about all this money that they steal from our wallets every year, because I don't think they have for a very long time. Kari, the whistleblowers at Minnesota DHS who tried to call out this fraud say that investigators in retaliation took photos of their cars, homes, monitored their computers and phones, sought to gain personal information even about what schools their kids attended, which is like mob stuff. They also alleged the DHS would refuse promotional opportunities for individuals who reported this fraud. That is so twisted, Kari.
It's twisted and very scary. I mean, remember, one Democrat actually voted against this kind of activity and ended up dead in the Minnesota legislature. But, you know, when Tim Walz decided to not run for re-election, when all of this started breaking, I knew something was up. That didn't smell right. And I'm so glad that Vice President J.D. Vance has sent this over to the DOJ. Fraud is fraud. Americans are working hard. And I heard a soundbite from Stephen Miller, the great Stephen Miller today, who said basically if we were to clamp down and end all of the fraud and things like the fraud that we're seeing in Minnesota, the hospice fraud, the daycare fraud, et cetera, it goes on and on, we could end the federal deficit, we could balance the budget. Think of how much richer we would be as a country. I think this is a huge step forward, and I have great faith that good things will come from it.
Yeah, you have to force the government to actually care about a pile of money that they didn't earn, and that's where it starts. Matt, Oversight Chairman James Comer thinks that Ilhan Omar, who is a congresswoman from Minneapolis, is also in big trouble as well, saying some of the earmarks that she requested for her district were part of this scheme, that she was funneling federal funds to these illegal operations. There are indications she really knew about this and maybe was potentially involved in this and was friends with people that were stealing the money.
Yeah, and the fact is she's such a dubious public official to begin with. Yeah. And I think the Republicans need to be incredibly aggressive with her and with all this wrongdoing. The thing that the American people are upset about, that MAGA America is upset about, is too many people come to Washington in public jobs, get rich in the process. And hers are particularly egregious. As you know, she had to file public disclosures, as Kari Lake has, as candidates and then as an elected official. And her public disclosure documents are just all over the map on assets and what her net worth is. And, you know, these are documents that are federal documents, and it's supposed to be unlawful to put inaccurate information in them. And I think the key thing here is that on all this fraud, apologies are not going to cut it. People need to go to prison.
Yeah,
they need to pay this back. They need to pay the taxpayers back. And there's a lot of victims associated with this, because these programs are put together to help the American people who are struggling, and these people ripped off poor people and people who need help.
Yeah.
And they should get thrown in prison for doing it.
And I get why Somalian people would come here and try to rip off this system. They look at this country and they just see a huge pile of money run by idiots. Right. What is unforgivable to me are the people that allowed it to happen. The people that looked the other way, the people that, you know, that facilitated it. That is to me, that's where the prosecutions need to really hammer down on. Want to switch and talk immigration for a second. Kari, Arizona is your state. The president signing $70 billion ICE and Border Protection, the big bill to fund immigration enforcement to clean up this country through the rest of the term. Take a look.
For more than 100 days, congressional Democrats tried to block all funding for the Department of Homeland Security in a reprehensible attempt to throw open the borders of the United States of America. They want to drag us straight back to chaos and crime. The Secure America Act provides $38 billion to ICE, $26 billion to Border Patrol.
I have to imagine some good things are going to come out of that money over the next 2.5 years, Kari.
Music to my ears. I think there's going to be great things happening with Mark Wayne Mullen running and leading DHS, using that money wisely. And we talked about all the fraud and the Somali community that has been really at the center of it. Not only do the American people, whether you're MAGA or not, I would hope that every American, no matter what their political affiliation is, wants to see that fraud rooted out, people to go to jail. We've seen all the investigations. We keep hearing about it. We want people in jail. And if you are here as an immigrant taking part in that fraud, we want you prosecuted and sent home to your homeland. No more allowing this kind of abuse of the American people's generosity.
Yeah, well said. I got to leave it there. Real quick, though, I just want to mention we had the Act Blue lady in Congress today, and she pleads the fifth when asked about all the foreign funding that's been dumped into our elections in this country. After what we just heard from Steve Hilton in the last block and that, how crooked our elections are. Just another example of just how twisted it is. Isn't it wild? Just
that's
going to
blow up. That story is going to blow up into much more.
Yeah, it certainly should. Kari Lake, Matt Schlapp, good to see you both. Thanks so much. Does Stephen King need a pardon from Donald Trump? We're going to explain next in News from the Left.
You can join the Tunnel to Towers mission to do good by donating your car to today's veterans. Your car donation will help Gold Star families, as well as injured veterans, our first responders, and our homeless veterans. Donating your car is quick and simple. Any car is accepted, and we will pick up the car for free. Simply call 844-BRAVES.
By donating your car, you can make a real difference. You can do good.
Xeno Organic Super Greens can help fill nutrition gaps and support gut health. With 5 grams of fiber, pre- and probiotics, 70 organic superfoods, and 0 sugar. Xena, the #1 organic super greens.
The wait is finally over. Christian Pulisic and the U.S. kick off their World Cup dream on a huge night in L.A. Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern on Fox.
If you want to be ready for summer, now's the time to call Sonobello. Sonobello helped me target the spots that diet and exercise never could.
Sonobello gave me my bikini body back.
At Sonobello, our expert surgeons remove stubborn fat permanently and tighten loose skin in one visit with less downtime. Every treatment plan is personalized for your body, your goals, and the results that you want to achieve.
Walking around this summer with my shirt off, it's the best decision I've ever made.
I see my spark back, and I am so glad that I went with Sonobello because they have truly changed my life.
With over 50,000 5-star reviews, Sonobello is America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist. I love wearing a bikini again and not having to cover up. See what's possible for you. Schedule your free consultation today. I got my summer body at Sonobello. Get your summer body back. Do this for you. And our flexible payment options make it easy to get started today. Call now or go to sonobello.com for your free personalized consultation. It's your life. Live it beautifully.
It's 2 a.m. Your fever spiked and you're miserable. Here's your options.
Urgent care, closed. ER, slammed. And you'll spend hundreds of thousands in both. Telehealth, yeah, but the pharmacies are closed.
That's the reason why we keep emergency medical kits at home.
It has doctor-prescribed medication like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other antibiotics and antivirals. You can treat flu, pneumonia, strep, sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
Because if you're sick in at night, traveling or stranded, you don't want options.
You want what is inside this kit. No waiting, no pharmacy, and no copays.
Just schedule a quick telehealth call.
And that's how you feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
Every family should have this kit, and here's how to order yours.
Order online in minutes and use the promo code to save $45. Your doctor-prescribed kit ships fast to your door, packed with medications to treat over 30 conditions. So when something hits, you're ready. And a wellness company telehealth doctor is always there if you need guidance.
Welcome back. Time now for News from the Left. Nazi-tatted fake oyster farmer Graham Platner cruising to the General Senate election in November last night. Virtually unopposed, though, he pulled a rather unimpressive 72% of the vote in that primary. He did beat out, of course, Janet Mills, who stopped campaigning in April. The manufactured real man candidate designed to get the male vote back for Democrats. His victory speech was pretty funny. Take a listen.
I've made mistakes in my life, mistakes that I regret, that I live with, and that I continue to learn from. And I'm still far from perfect. But every day I wake up and I try to be a little bit better and a little bit kinder than I was the day before. And if you give me the chance, I will be a senator for the people who cannot afford to buy a senator.
Notice how they put like 20 women behind him because he needs so much freaking help with women at this point. Made mistakes in my life. What a euphemism. I mean, brother, your whole life is a disaster. We've seen everything now for the last 40 years of it. I don't think you've had a day when you didn't make a terrible, crazy, insane mistake. Platner then jumping on Morning Joe, saying he has the moral authority to call for the release of the Epstein files despite his controversies. Now, remember, this is a guy that had an online profile on an app for kids featuring him shirtless and in a towel. He's talking about Epstein.
Can you just talk about the nature of the sexting in terms of, can you call for the release of the Epstein files and not be conflicted in any way?
Yes, of course. I mean, I engaged in consensual romantic activities with adults at an earlier part in my life. That seems like a fairly normal thing most people do. Going to an island with billionaires to possibly assault children is a vastly, vastly different thing.
Notice that she didn't ask him about the Kick profile, again, the online app for kids, that he has the shirtless in a towel picture at the age of 35 years old. President Trump tearing into Platner earlier, and any Democrat who continues to back him. Take a listen.
Yeah, watch that thug that's up in Maine. He's a thug. And they're trying to make excuses for him. I mean, he's worse than any human being that's ever run for office, probably. He's a cheap, no good person. And I watch these senators, the Democrats, and, well, we don't really know. You do know. I actually think the one in Maine is worse, because he's just an outright pig. He's like a pig. I don't want to stick him with that one, although I think pigs would be very upset about it.
In case you wanted to know where Trump thought about Platner. Next up here with the World Cup starting this week, a Somalian referee, Omar Abdul Qadir Atan, has become the center of controversy. He was supposed to officiate games here in the U.S. for the World Cup, but he's been blocked from entering the United States due to his alleged ties to terrorist organizations. Okay. Customs Border Patrol saying Atan arrived at Miami International Airport on a flight from Istanbul Saturday, was barred from entering, though, following routine inspection. His name is similar to that of a man identified as linked to the Somali militant group Al-Shabaab, upon whom the U.S. government has imposed sanctions. Of course, this sent the left into a fury about how this is such a racist country and we don't love Somalian people enough. And you even had Toronto's mayor, Olivia Chow, says Omar would be welcome to referee in her nation, because, of course, that's what the Canadians said, saying denying entry to him, who has earned his place on the world stage through hard work and perseverance, is not right. But what if he's actually affiliated with terror groups? She probably wouldn't have a problem with that either. Let's be honest. And next up, sticking with the World Cup, sports journalist Ibrahim Kadra, covering the tournament in the U.S., also is a problem. Reportedly expressed pro-Hamas views on October 7th. Local watchdog trying to cancel his visa, saying he compared the October 7th attacks to a soccer spectacle, saying he thought the massacre was far more exciting than football. Described the murder of Jews as heroic operations, and this guy is now here reporting on the World Cup, or at least until Marco Rubio, if you're watching, throws him out of the country. Finally, a moment you'd never expect, the Secretary of Commerce stopping by the reflecting pool. Howard Lutnick posting this picture, admiring the absolute beauty of what they've done to that pool over the last month. And out of nowhere, Stephen King, the anti-Trump, very vocal lib writer, saying very beautiful as well, and reposting Howard Lutnick's tweet, which makes you wonder what in the world is going on. Have you ever seen Stephen King's X profile? He despises the Trump administration. Does he need a pardon? Is there something we don't know? I guess we'll find out. All right, Jimmy Kimmel and our friend Spencer Pratt up next.
Closed captioning brought to you by MagnaLife Pain and Inflammation Relief Roll-On.
Your muscle and joint inflammation is real. Here's what real customers are saying about MagnaLife Pain and Inflammation Relief Roll-On. It worked great.
Available at your local retailer.
Mike Hammond of Signal Relief. We've helped nearly 700,000 feel relief in their back, shoulders, and knees with our technology. But for many of us, it's our feet that hurt. And when they hurt, our walks get shorter, activities are skipped, and the moments we love start slipping away. That's why we created the Signal Step, a patent-pending insole built using the same proven technology people already trust from Signal Relief. Signal uses no drugs. There's nothing on the market like it. It's relief without the side effects. It's reusable, fits virtually into any shoe, and in a recent study, over 85% felt relief, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. So what are you waiting for? Feel relief with every step. If you're hurting, go to signalstep.com and get relief today.
Like a relentless weed, moderate to severe Crohn's disease symptoms can keep coming back. Break away to what's possible with Tremfya. Tremfya can help with remission at 12 weeks, 1 year, and 2 years. Some had visible repair of their intestinal lining. Serious allergic reactions, increased risk of infections or lower ability to fight them, and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or need a vaccine. Break away with Tremfya. Ask your doctor about Tremfya today.
The Dutton Ranch. We're back in business.
You heard right. Let's go to work. I'm glad you're making friends, honey.
You're every bit as advertised.
You're damn right it is.
Fighting a good fight, buddy.
Marlene trusts Prevagen for her brain, and this is her story.
Hi, I'm Marlene. Taking care of myself, it's also taking care of the family as well. I've been taking Prevagen for around 5 years now. It helps me maintain who I am and gives me more confidence. I'm taking Prevagen and telling my family and telling everyone around me, I know what it's going to do for them. Prevagen works for me, and I see the results.
Prevagen has been the #1 selling brain supplement nationwide for over 10 years.
The pain is gone. It's gone. I was wheeled in. I couldn't even move 5 feet without the wheelchair. I was in awful pain.
Are you able to get onto the bed?
I doubt it.
No?
We went through the whole intake interview, did the MRI, x-rays. I was awake through the surgery, came back to recovery. I was there for 10 minutes, and I got up and I walked.
Venati succeeds where others fail.
Spring. It's time to run it. Run it until the grass becomes a lawn, until the hedges duck and cover. Then, run it again.
Finally tonight, this D-bag Jimmy Kimmel roasting Spencer Pratt for losing his home in a terrible fire and having the audacity to try and save his state.
I know things might be tight right now, especially the out-of-state donation money is running out. Moving is expensive, so to help you out, we rented you a U-Haul. It's got 2 beds, tables, chairs, all your crystals, whatever you want. Our staff spent the whole day decorating it for you. So, and everybody that will notice you and wave goodbye.
God, he sucks. He just sucks, and I know he knows he sucks. He neutered himself for ABC. That's what happened to Jimmy Kimmel. He chopped him off. Pratt clapping back on X, sharing this video of his house destroyed by the Pacific Palisades fire, writing, "Jimmy, I guess you missed the part of the story that I don't need a U-Haul. I have nothing left to pack."
Yeah, good for
Senator's
him.
Up next.
He's not going away, by the way. Spencer
No.
Pratt's going to run for the Senate. He'll run for Congress. He'll do something. He's not going away.
Oh, I thought you meant Kimmel. Kimmel's not going away. No,
Kimmel,
he'll never go away
unfortunately,
either.
isn't going away.
As much as we'd
you
like
know
to
what,
see him go away.
I was thinking about this. You've heard of Stockholm Syndrome, where people like sympathize with their captors. I honestly think any Democrat in Los Angeles that voted for Karen Bass, like they're like, yeah, she was in Ghana during the Palisades fire. Like the mayor of Los Angeles was in Ghana, and they still vote for her because they're just like, she's a Democrat. We got to do it.
Kimmel proudly voted for her. Yeah.
Pathetic.
He's a feminist now. I don't know what he is.
He is. He's always been.
He's a pathetic guy.
Even when he did the Men Show. All right, Rob, we'll do it again tomorrow night. Finity starts right now.
Information. Truth. Is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.